what I owe them is first, knowledge and faith in God, building character and discipline into them, and let them go into the world out there. I'm not building inheritance for them. They will build their own inheritance. They can only leverage on what I have to multiply their own inheritance, because my inheritance is my inheritance.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think more African parents need to really be like this. It's not okay, because it was tough for me growing up. Sometimes you want to go overboard and my children shouldn't suffer. Even here in the United States, most of the things flying around now is how we can build wealth for our kids, businesses you can do. And to me, it's not balanced. Where is the balance? How are they going to be independent and go out all out for themselves? So I really appreciate you mentioning that. And I wanted to, since you talked about the kids, how is child training as a busy corporate man that you are? Can we learn from you? Take a few tips.
I don't think I once had a mentee who told me she wished babies came with a user manual. Because every child is different, and the way they respond to different things also differs. My second child is very bold and audacious. She's going to challenge me on things. The last baby knows she's very close to my heart, and so the elder ones will send her to me to try to manipulate me to doing things that I don't want them to do. But a couple of things that I allow them understand. First, the Bible directs everything we do. And so if they want to do anything, I ask them the question, will Jesus do this? Wow. At some point in time, when we come back from church and I ask them, what did you learn in church? And little children, they want to wiggle their way out. So they look at each other's faces, and then the next thing they say is, we learned the word of God.
Really?
And is it not the word of God they learned each other?
Wow,
that's which one did you learn today?
Wow, interesting.
Finish. We try and let them know do's and don'ts from the point of view of the Bible. And then we also try to let them understand some of our cultural nuances. You don't talk to elderly people this way. When your mom calls you, don't just say yes. Say yes, mommy, or yes, daddy. And of course, when they're at granny's place, there's a cultural way we say sir or ma, when they call you. I inculcate all of that. There is no superior or inferior culture anywhere. Your culture is your identity. And for as long as it does not come at conflict with the Bible, I would incorporate it into my children's upbringing, because that's their unique identity. So I try to do that. The other thing I try to do is not to rescue them if their mom is disciplining them. I would rather appeal to her to say, please now, my children have begged you. I wouldn't give them a contrary instruction of, and vice versa for her too. So we have that kind of agreement. And we have our own misunderstanding, we have our own disagreement. As much as possible, never let it be obvious to them, and don't let the children, get to know about, some of those nuances. And we also try to incorporate our local language, which is a bit of a challenge now, you wouldn't believe me. Because my first daughter could speak very well. But when they moved to Grandpa's place, Grandpa felt like, the easiest way to communicate with them is just speak English. And so they understand the language, but they can't speak the language. So you talk to them in Yoruba language, for instance, they'll respond in English. So sometimes I tell them that if you ever need anything from daddy today, you need to speak Yoruba language. Otherwise, you're not getting nothing.
Wow.
So they then go and meet their aunt. How do you say, daddy, I want this? And then that one tells them, and then they come and meet me. Daddy, mo fe this.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So bits and pieces of all of those things. And then when we have the opportunity of family altar together, it's also another learning point. And family altar is always interrupted by them because they want to tell you the story of what happened. Oh, Shemilore did this in school, something, whether related or not to the topic. So we just have to gift them with the patience to listen to whatever they had to say and then make a comment on it. Because those are some of the small, it's not like sit them down and then you start indoctrinating them. You use every opportunity when they are talking to be able to share, to be able to correct, and to be able to guide them. My kids know, oh, daddy does, if you ask them now, they'll tell you, daddy does 4 jobs. They'll tell you, point blank. So if you ask them, what does your daddy do? They'll say, well, my daddy has 4 jobs. He does this, he does that, he does this. So they tell you it's hard work. My daddy works really hard. So they understand the part of hard work. And I tell them all of these things. So these are some of the basic building blocks. And as they grow older, we expose them to more. When they asked my daughter what she wanted to be growing up, they weren't going to secondary school. She said anything my daddy was, after all, he's rich.
Really? Wow.
So the head teacher now told her, do you know your dad read zoology in school? I was like, what's that?
I'm coming to that, actually.
He had to then call me to confirm. And I said, don't you know that? She said, really? How come you're not doing this? I said, it's a long story and I'm going to tell you when you come home. And she said, you better do. So those are learning opportunities for us. We just try as much as possible to create those scenarios or take advantage of scenarios that they create. And honestly, there are times when we are just tired and they come and you just like, go to your room. Please go to your room. I want to sleep. But I started feeling guilty of that. And that's why I've been thinking of either taking a career break or doing something that was going to be a bit of some work from home opportunities, maybe something a little lighter, just to be able to ensure that, look, I need to gift them with more time now, at least, to mold with my wife. It's been 4.5 years that she's been in the hospital and all of that. Obviously, there are a lot of gaps now. And then for the children, let's rediscover each other and, we can build a family, because family is all you have left when everything else is gone. So you can't neglect it.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all those wonderful tips. Yes, that's and I can relate with some of them. Like you're tired and then you still have to be there for them. That is really great. Thank you so much. Like you rightly said, those kids, every kid is different, really. Every child is different. That's something I didn't even read this from anywhere, except that the closest that I've heard about it is every pregnancy is different when we're pregnant. But just like that, so every child is different. My first is different from my second, is different from my third. And coincidentally, my second born is very audacious. So she's bold. In short, at some point, we had to devise, we had to pray that God give me how do I relate with this girl? And then God helped me, and then we started negotiating. When she says, this is what I want to do, we'll be like, okay, can you do that later? What about doing this now and doing that later and all of that? Because in school, she was bossing them around, even the teacher. She would tell them, this is what I want to do when they ask her to do this. And how they accommodate all of those things. Like they would tell them, they don't want to force them. I'm like, you need to teach her, and I don't know, she can't be the one teaching you. So God gave her the grace, and I saw that she really changed. So as much as she's scared of the cane, I found that when I started doing that, negotiating with her, it really worked. It really works. She would just let go and like, okay, mommy, we can do this and all of those things. So every child is different.